Welcome, everybody, to Generation Dan, the show where your knees are elastic and you light farts on fire. I'm Atlas Novack. I'm your millennial. Who else is here with me?
I feel like my knees are made out of crackers, but yeah, that's fine. I'm Dino, the genetic marvel, your resident old person, but not the oldest
today.
Anymore.
Yeah. Joining us today is my father, the man, the myth, the legend, the reason I'm here, Roger Novak. How are you?
I am so proud to be here. This is one of the greatest shows ever. I am a boomer. You guys know what the remnants of that is.
Yeah, and you're like solidly in the middle of that. It's not because like Dino's near the end of Gen X, I'm near the end of millennial. You're like smack in the middle.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm the oldest person here. It's my 65th birthday.
Happy birthday, Jim.
Happy birthday, Jim. Good to see you, Mr. Novak.
Hey,
that's the guy I was telling you about. Is that guy, Jim Eaton?
Yeah.
Our past guest.
That was the first person we had on that was older than I was, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a youth. This is great. This is so."
So,
yeah, I'm shocked at my age. I can't believe it's gone so quickly.
Okay, here's the question for you, Roger. Now, I never believed that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to pass 30. And then I did. And now I'm past 40. And I'm like, man, that's surprising. Does that ever change? Do you kind of realize you're like, I'm surprised I'm still around? Like, is that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day, that I keep reading about people who are dying and they're in their 50s and 60s.
O.J. Simpson.
Yeah. I am 72. I'm shocked. Totally shocked by it.
Like
it's gone so quickly.
I was, let's see, this was probably about 15 years ago, and there was a gentleman that I worked with who was 49, and he had liver cancer. I didn't know. Within 9 weeks, he went from healthy to gone. And I was like, he was the guy that we all knew he'd be late to work on his birthday because he would get a physical on his birthday. He never drank, didn't smoke, didn't do drugs. He was active regularly. He would bring his lunch from home. And I'm like, of all the people, why that guy? Like, I'm like, I treated my body like a fun park. I still do most of the time, but you know, it's just one of those weird things.
Now, for somebody who never abused his liver and died of liver cancer, did this guy decide to randomly start making meth? Because that kind of just sounds like Walter White.
Like, no, he was a dork. Like, he was just a loser, right? Like, just like he was a nice guy and everything, but it was just like,
I have an answer for all this.
Hit me.
Yeah,
he's a doctor, by the way. This isn't completely weird,
right?
But, yeah.
My whole life, I've worked out almost every day. I put sunscreen on. I grew up in Miami, but I hated getting burned, so I put sunscreen on, which in those days was zinc oxide, you know, white stuff. I didn't smoke. I had a great diet because I like to eat everything. But what gets you is the genetics, you know, no matter what you do. And so if you have a family history of heart disease, or in my case, I have Parkinson's disease. I have a gene for it.
Yeah.
And with the gene, I had a 25% chance of developing the active disease, and I got it anyway.
And your dad had it too.
Yeah, right. He gave me the gene, and he gave me, I was always low blood pressure my whole life until right when I hit 60 and went up. And that's when he hit it too.
Yeah.
When he's 60. So you can't beat your relatives.
The only thing that I'm hoping for is that, like, when my mom was 26, she had to get her gallbladder out. When I was 26, that started affecting me. And I'm like, and her family is notoriously long-lived, whereas my dad's is notoriously, like,
short-lived,
mid-70s kind of thing, right? So I'm like, here's hoping, you know?
Yeah. And if you want to hear more about Dino's gallbladder removal, check out our episode from last week about dumb injuries. And the stitches are out. It's now just a cut.
When was your mother born? What year?
47.
All right, so that's almost pre-antibiotics. Like, I had a grandmother that had surgery in the 1930s.
Yeah.
And she almost died because of infection because they didn't have antibiotics then.
Right.
Penicillin was born in the 40s.
See, and this is my conundrum with it, is that you're like, the idea that you could be taken out by a cold is horrible. And you're like, wow, antibiotics have saved so many lives. At the same time, there's a little too much traffic for my liking. Maybe we don't need antibiotics for everybody. I'm just, I don't know.
What happens with antibiotics? So, you go down to Mexico, you can buy 1 pill of penicillin. Doesn't kill all your bacteria. And the next thing you know, you have these mutant strains that are killing you.
Yeah. Well, last February, I went with a friend to the city of Lyon. And when we were there, like I'm walking through the airport and they had pharmacies and they were like, whatever you want, it's for sale. They're like, oh, do you need a prescription? They're like, no, you don't need anything. You just need money. And I'm like,
we have cocaine. Do you understand that? There's cocaine and everything you want.
Well, that's why I'm like, kind of like when you let it just run and like, I never even considered like, here's your dosage of antibiotics. It's 2 weeks. You got to take them all. And you're like, yeah, you gave me 2 weeks. There's obviously some reason. I don't know, but there's a reason for it. So I'm going to take the whole thing. And like you said, is people will not take their full round. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, how did I get sicker? And I'm like, ha, shenanigans. Right.
Well, the reason that my dad is here today is we are talking about friendships in your 20s. Now, a few years ago, God damn it, a few episodes ago, I told a story about a friend of yours when you lived in Colorado in the 70s, known as the field mouse. I forgot which episode it was, but when I remember, I'll put it down in the description. So we're talking about just the crazy stuff the three of us got into in our 20s with our friends, because driving a car through the side of a house and lighting your farts on fire. Great place to start.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me give you a little background on our group there. I moved into Colorado. I was in graduate school. I just didn't like the department.
Yeah.
So I decided to pull out. I was working on my PhD at the time. And I called up my girlfriend. She lived in Boston. I was at Penn in Philadelphia. And I said, and she had taught me how to ski. And I was maybe an intermediate skier at that point. And but I loved it so much I wanted to try it. And I knew if I got my PhD, I wouldn't be able to do that because you never get a job after that.
After getting a PhD?
Yeah, once you get it. They think you're crazy. But if it's before you get the PhD, you can go back to school and then finish it up later on.
Interesting.
Get away with that.
Huh.
So what I did was I wrote up my master's thesis and I got my master's. And I called my girlfriend in Boston. I said, do you want to move to Colorado or somewhere to ski with me? She said, no, I don't want to be a waitress. I think she didn't like me anymore anyway. And so I called my mom, and I thought my mom was going to give me all sorts of shit. She said, fine, have a nice time, dear. I said, well, all right. So I
Grandma Janice was chill. That's
she was. So I hitched her. I literally hitched all the way to Colorado.
Yeah,
and that we can do another time. The adventures on that hitching trip.
Oh my God.
That's the thing is, so I remember my ex-wife's grandfather was telling me how a bunch of him and his friends, like he was in it like 85 20 years ago, so he was quite old, but he was saying how like before there were even interstates, him and his buddies jumped in a car and drove from it was from I think it was from like Canada. It went south and then went all the way across the states just on like local roads, which I'm like, I wouldn't do that. That's terrifying to me, but I'm like, at the same time, back then you could do that. There were a lot less serial killers.
Yeah, there was bad.
Actually, wait, this is in the 70s, right?
Yeah, this was in the 70s.
So this is like when Ted Bundy and all them.
Yeah,
right?
Serial killer time. Yeah.
Well, nasty stuff has always happened. Kids were getting assaulted, in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's more, and with all the social media, everybody hears about it now.
True.
But that stuff was happening.
Yeah. I think that is to a degree one of the components where it's like I was listening to this today, how so many people, like, I know where the village my father's from, like all of my cousins that are there have like banging wives, and I'm like, because they're all village girls, they had no hope of anything better, so they married their ugly ass, which I'm like, I get it, but now, like with the internet, you have a lot more resources, right? So knowledge and like connections are available for anybody, right?
So wait, does that mean nowadays there's a bunch of like millennial and Gen Z Greeks who are frustrated about seeing pictures of their, they just become like Greek incels or something? Like,
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Nothing builds a body like farm work, and I'm telling you, like, it's unhinged. Where you're just going like, how? And their girl's like, oh, I work on a farm and everything, and you're just like, you're a smoke show, and there's like, you're like, have you ever thought of doing anything other than farm work? They're like, absolutely not. I want nothing to do with anything. And you're like, that's probably better. I just, it's a lot more fulfilling, that's for sure. But it's a weird thing where like you don't know, you gauge your limits of everything when you don't have access to a lot more, right? Like going on it, like not knowing what the outcome will be, just because like as a young person, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. Whereas now, like even for me, I'm 43 and I look at stuff and people are like, oh, I'll do this. And you're going, oh, that's a horrible idea. And sure enough, it turns out to be a horrible idea and it's hilarious. But like, I'm like, let me just make sure I have this on film. I just, yeah, do it. It's just, because that happens, but you don't really know kind of what you're getting into. So it's like the best you can hope for is just, see if it works out. Right.
Can I tell you a little side story?
Always.
I have I had some patients with a specific Spanish surname, which I won't say.
HIPAA.
Right. And but I had like 3 of them, and they all looked alike. They didn't know each other, but they all had the same last name.
Was it Habsburg?
No. And then I have a friend here who has the same thing. He looks like them too.
Okay.
So I started asking questions about it. Some of them spoke English, some didn't. I translated. And it turned out that they were all from the same town.
Yeah.
And one of them finally told me, he said that all the grandfathers were running around town impregnating the other one's wives.
So they were all just like being man whores throughout this entire village.
Yeah.
See,
and I love that story.
Yeah, it was a great story, right? But at the same time, like it's this weird thing where you're going like that can happen like once, and then everyone needs to disperse. Otherwise, you start getting weird shit happening, right? Like that's how that like it's this weird thing.
Why my chin's so big? Oh shit!
Yeah, I mean, none of them knew each other, and they lived close to each other. It was so weird.
Like, but that's and I think the U.S. is notorious for this, and I'm sure other countries are. Just not my experience was that like there are a lot of people that will grow up in a town and never leave a 10-mile radius, and like they're like, that's it. Like I was born here, I worked here, I died here, and no more. Right. So it's even like where my mom is from is in Greece. Is like a village that now has maybe 70 people. It's 1,500 meters above sea level in the mountains. It's the best sleep you'll ever get in your life. But at the same time, they're like, we don't go anywhere. Everyone just stays here, works their fields, and just waits for death. And I'm like, you never wanted to do anything? They're like, who's got time to do stuff?
Well, you never get exposed to it, meaning that there's no want to. Like, right?
I don't know. Like that's the thing is, even my dad who grew up on a farm, like he always went and like he went to Athens for school. And then when he came back, he was like, okay, I'm going to Canada. Like his options were, because he had education, was to go to Australia, the United States, or Canada. And he decided on Canada and Toronto. And I was like, how come you picked that instead of, Australia or the US? And he was like,
oh my God, Australian Dino, the genetic marvel.
I mean,
that's the alternate universe I want.
I mean, I would definitely be some sort of crocodile wrangler. Like, there's no question about that. But like that, like it's you just kind of think, like, well, hilariously, like I know that I have relatives in Australia and in the States as well. But like my last name is fairly unique, so it doesn't come up very often. But hilariously, like I grew up on a suburb of Toronto, and there was a fish and chips joint. And my dad was like, I like fish and chips. Let's go. So we went with the whole family. My dad gives a credit card. And like, it's taking like half an hour. And my dad's like, what's going on? And then the owner comes out and they have they look totally different, but they have the exact same name, first and last. And it was like, that's weird. And then you're like, start asking questions. And it's like, so like my last name is not like Smith. It's more like Johnston with a T. Like you'll see it everywhere, but not often. Right.
Like
There's always
Baker,
like,
right.
Yeah. Like it's just one family here and there. So you're just like, it's peculiar because we kind of just like spread out everywhere. But at the same time, you're kind of like, you run into people and you're like, Blutzes, which Blutzes are you? Where are you from? And then they tell you and you're like, I got nothing. I have no idea where that is. So you're like, I don't know. Right? But it happens.
Anyway, so you were saying about you were hitching out to Colorado.
I can't remember where we left off. So hitching, I forgot where I was going with that part of the story.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I started hitching. I got all the way to Colorado, to Denver. I saw a sign for Aspen Airways. So I figured I'll just fly in the last part. So I took a flight in. When I got off the plane, this guy comes up to me and says, do you need a taxi? And I didn't really have any money left. So I said, nah, I don't have it. And I kept talking to him. And this turned out to be my friend Greg. He was the first person I met when I got into Aspen. And he had a big cowboy hat. And I'm
imagining like Burt Reynolds, you know?
Yeah, he kind of looked like him.
Yeah.
Kind of looked like him. Greg was a big, tall guy, and he was young. He's about 4 or 5 years older than I. And we just had a nice chat, and he said, listen, I'm having some people over for dinner tomorrow night. Do you want to come? So I said, sure. I said, but I need a place to stay tonight. So he showed me a boarding house that was there. And I stayed, and the next day it was one of these gorgeous Colorado days where it's blue skies. This was in the summer. So it was blue skies and cumulus clouds, and they were having the music festival. So there was music all over town.
And this is like 70s.
The 70s. So. And it was so gorgeous and beautiful and sounded so good that I said, I'm going to stay for a while. So I looked on the bulletin board, and there was a 3-bedroom apartment that needed a third guy. They had 2 guys. And I called them up, and they accepted me. And the roommates are a whole story, too. So they're insane.
Yeah.
And I took the place, and it turned out the apartment was directly below Greg's apartment.
No.
So I literally right below.
Yeah.
So that next night comes, and I go up there on the time he told me. Nobody's there.
Okay.
So I come back an hour later. Nobody's there. Come back in an hour and a half. There's the roommate, his roommate. It's a girl, and she was very attractive. But she had big thighs. She was a really good skier. Later became the first ski patrolman in Aspen that was female.
Oh.
And her name was Alex. And she was very sweet. And she said, oh, Greg is always late for everything, which was true.
This feels like foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I stayed there, and other guests kept arriving. And Greg came 4 hours late. Came home with food, bags of groceries.
Okay, that's fine. I guess.
He was making dinner. He loved to make dinner. But he was the slowest chef on the planet. And so finally he starts making the dinner. And over the years, we had 1 million dinner parties. And usually the second course was about 1 a.m. before we get there. We'd be up all night having these dinner parties.
Yeah.
And then they're pulling out joints, and we're eating, and everybody's getting the munchies. And I said, I'm going to like this place. And so that was the beginning of my relationship with Greg. I've been friends with him for almost 55 years now. It's been a long time. I think it was about 20. So
Yeah.
Oh, this is like your early 20s. I thought it was like further along.
No.
Because you said your master's. I assumed you were like 24 or 25. This is earlier?
It was probably about 24.
Okay.
So almost 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
So, and so you start skiing in Aspen, but it was this, summer, everybody's in great shape. You're at altitude. You develop more red blood cells so you can breathe at that altitude. And you just have the best time. So I kept trying to get jobs, and I was having trouble. They already had waiters and everything else. So I had a BS in electrical engineering, and I had just gotten my master's in bioengineering. And so I started talking to TV repair shops. And these shops, nobody, there were like 3 of them in Aspen, unbelievably, because they had all these gorgeous mansions. And I eventually got a job at one of the places because I kept harassing him. And he said, if you can fix this set, this was a guy named Big Al. Big Al was about 260, but solid.
Yeah. So him.
Yeah.
Big Al,
yeah. It's about
Big
me.
Al, Big Al is.
Yeah. It's about me. Yeah.
Dino, how much do you weigh now?
Yeah, around 260, 250, somewhere around there. Like,
he kind of looked like you too.
I'm sure he's gorgeous as well. That's fine.
And eventually, when he accepted me, and one of the reasons he accepted me was he said, if you can fix this TV, you have a job. But it took me about 8 months before I fixed it. I'll tell you how the solution on that one. But before that, I found out that the other guy that he was employing already was stealing from him.
That sucks.
So I turned him in. Well, by then, he liked me by then, so it was reliable. And the way I fixed the set, I found a bunch of little things wrong with it. And nowadays, when they fix it, they just pull out sections of the TV and put new boards in. Or
did they? Got it. Thanks for watching. It'll be up on Friday. You can watch. Listen to it then. What was I saying? So when he would do that, did he like deliberately break a TV and was like, "Here, fix this as a test," or I can't figure this out?
Yeah, no one could figure it out. You had like 10 people work on it.
Okay.
So in those days, you have to find like a little individual, like a Zener diode was bad. You have to desolder and put another one in.
Okay.
And so I got some of the volume, some power, but I couldn't get the power to the whole thing. So to jump to the end, about 8 months out, I was picking up the chassis one day. I was going crazy working on it. Meanwhile, I'd work on all the others.
Okay, so like you had the job by this point. It wasn't like, I'll give you the job when you finish the...
Yeah, and when I had time, I would work on it.
Yeah.
So I lifted up the chassis and something scraped my finger.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that set turned on was you pulled a little button to click it out.
Yeah.
And when you pulled the thing, it would click 2 potentiometers inside. And it turned out that one of the pieces that held the main bar that you're pulling
was broken. Okay.
So when I saw that, I went, "Oh my God, this is it!" And I just, before I even checked it, I called Big Al over. I said, "Al, watch this." And I just flipped it with my finger, and the whole set came on. Yeah, we just laughed.
You're like, "This is magic."
It's so crazy. Yeah. It's so crazy.
But that's the thing, is that's how electronics used to be. Like, you had to go through every little part and you would fix it, and like a lot of guys would just resell it. Like, that's why there was a TV repairman. Someone's like, "Oh, this is junk. Can I get a new one?" Be like, "Okay, we'll take your old one. We'll fix it." Like, even now, I have like washers and dryers. Like, I used to rent out a condo, and if I needed a new washer dryer, I would call these guys, and they would be like, "Okay, $20 extra. We'll take the old ones away from you," because they would take it, refurbish it, and sell it off again.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah. That's why, like, the whole idea now, where it's like, it's not worth fixing things. You just take it, dump it, and get something new. Which you're like, it's not a sustainable process, right? Yeah. But what can you do?
Yeah, like the other day, I had a washing machine, and the guy came out and he said, "I can fix it, but we have to do this and this, and we have to get the part." And he said it'll take this much money, this much time. I said, "It's cheaper to just get a new washer." He said, "Yeah."
Yeah,
it's funny that he just said that to your face. Like when I go to get my car fixed, or like maintenance or whatever, instead of like opening up the hood like you would normally do. They have like this thing
Plug it in. Yeah.
that they plug into the below the steering wheel, and it just says all the stuff wrong with.
Yeah, I have one.
Whatever it is.
I have one.
Really?
Yeah. I got one too. I got one for Kyle for Christmas because you're just like, it's good to know. You're like, you plug it in and it tells you what's wrong, and you're like, okay, do I care? Like for me, I have my engine light is on, but it's because of my catalytic converter. One of the O2 sensors keeps on going off, and my buddy's like, listen, I can't, because my car, I have a 2004 Cadillac CTS. I'm like, he's like, I can't find the catalytic converter for this. Like, it doesn't exist. So either I'm going to cut it out entirely and you're still going to get the warning, or we just leave it as is. And I'm like, leave it. I don't care. But as long as that's it, I don't have to worry. Right. So I just plug it in, check it. Okay. It's still the same thing.
These days, the technology is so good that it'll say you're farting too much in the car. You know,
that's accurate.
Fix that, yeah.
Oh God, if that's the case, my car must be in pain. That's
well, for numerous reasons, it's a Prius, so it has a life of pain in general.
That's true. So you met Greg. He's a good but slow chef.
Yeah.
He started working as a TV repairman. What else?
Yeah, we're starting to have friends. I'm starting to meet people, and my roommates were crazy too. They had Dave, who was had been a dealer in Vegas. So I'll tell a little side story on that later. And then Phil Novack from Canada, who was looked like a Greek god, unbelievable body, long hair. Look, who's that?
Makes sense.
Who's that famous guy? That Fabio. Remember Fabio?
Oh yeah.
I saw Fabio at the airport once. It was a crack up.
But anyway, you're looking for Fabio. Who's Fabio?
This guy looked like Fabio.
That's so funny.
And
I did this.
But he was the dumbest guy alive.
Really?
Can't have everything. That makes sense.
But he would sleep with every girl in town. They all wanted to sleep with him. And he was spreading clap all around Aspen.
So at that point, it's more like applause, right?
Yeah.
Not my joke, but I love that one.
Right. Yeah. And I said, Phil, don't you think you should go to the doctor and get a shot? He said, what for? I said, you're spreading disease all around Aspen. And I said, I don't get laid that much, but if I do, I don't want to get the clap from you.
That's fair.
So I got him to get a shot, which was good. But Phil, I had maybe 2 pairs of jeans and a T-shirt. That's all I had to wear. So one day,
that's an extensive wardrobe for a man.
Right. That's how you were,
fancy jeans and normal jeans. Yeah, you're good.
So one day I'm looking for my jeans. I can't find them. So I put on this dirty pair I had. And I'm walking through town. Here comes Phil walking in my jeans. I said, Phil, are those mine? He goes, yeah, I didn't think you would mind. I said, well, I don't mind, but can't you ask me? Because I didn't have anything else to wear. And he goes, oh, I didn't get it. Didn't understand it. So he would do stuff like that. And then we hired Phil to help us move our TV store to another place. And Phil broke so many TVs, Big Al wanted to wring his neck.
Oh, geez.
He would damage the cathode ray tube, the main screen.
Yeah. Oh.
He smashed them, and he did all sorts of crazy stuff. So that was Phil. And we had crazy parties and so on. So, I'm gradually gathering these people into my life. And the summer goes on and it starts in the fall, and it's just locals in town. But then the summer and the winter have all the tourists. And you're preying on these girls that are coming in. And
because it was the 70s.
Right. Yeah. You didn't have to worry about disease. You didn't have AIDS yet.
Oh, right. I didn't even think of that.
You had the clap, but no one cared about.
But you get a shot.
You get a shot and do it. And also in the fall, you started at these workouts. Everybody in town went to the high school, and they had ski conditioning classes, and they would kill you. And then at the first sign of any snowfall, and it was pretty early because you're up at 8,000 feet.
Yeah.
We go up to Independence Pass, which is about 11,000 feet. And we would hike up. They get the early snows. We'd hike up to the top, ski down, and carry your skis back up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and we were in good shape.
That's horrifying.
You'd have to be in good shape for that. Like that's a brutal, yeah.
And then the other thing about it is they don't care how good a skier you are. They go, come on with us. And I'm an intermediate skier, and they're taking me down these chutes off piste skiing, you know.
Oh my God.
With no trails and stuff. Yeah. And they just take off. And you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Yeah. And so by the end of the year, I literally skied every single day, rain or shine or snow or not. And by the end of the year, I could ski anything in Aspen. It was pretty good. And we'd take off. We go to Vail about once every 2 weeks. And then I had a friend that I met there that was a private pilot, and he'd fly over to Crested Butte. It took you 8 hours to drive it, but 20 minutes to fly over. And then we'd ski over there, so it was nice.
Butte is Montana? Or
what?
Crested Butte?
Crested Butte is Colorado.
Oh, it's still Colorado.
So right on the other side of the mountains from Aspen.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of the city Butte in Montana. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
So it's good. And then we go to other places as well.
Butte, not Butt.
Right. Exactly.
It's definitely Butt, Montana.
Yeah.
No, but
now back to Big Al.
Yeah.
Al loved to ski. In those days, we didn't have the parabolic skis, which made it a lot easier. We had these giant head skis, and it was the first of the metal skis. They used to be, before that, they were wood.
Oh my God.
You'd have these long skis that were like, I skied on 203s, 203 centimeters, and Al skied on about 219s or something.
Okay.
Really big. And he'd come flying down at about 90 miles an hour. He's scary. He'd come right at you. You know, it's like
hilariously, that's how I ski. Just like a rocket going down, just going and hope to stop.
It was really good. It was like a cannonball coming at you.
Yeah.
And that's how, now back to Mouse, that's how Mouse skied.
Okay, yeah. So again, to refresh people who haven't heard or seen that episode, the field mouse is your friend who's tiny and insane.
Yeah, I can give you a little introduction to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the mouse was a friend of Greg's. And then Greg had a young sister who's a couple years younger than I am. I'm still good friends with her. And she was a fox, this gorgeous girl. She was one of the first people I met also. And Mouse was her buddy. Mouse was this little guy. He was like a fire plug. He was really wide, strong. He was a diving champion at the University of Missouri. Really good athlete, incredible skier. And he always wore his big hat and these dark, really dark glasses. He looked like an alien.
Yeah.
He was a little guy. And he didn't care what anyone thought about him. He just did insane stuff. Really nuts.
If people want like a parallel to what kind of person Mouse was, the descriptions I got of him as a child made me think of Winslow from Cat Dog. Did you ever see Cat Dog, Dino?
No.
Okay, little mouse. He lives in the wall and he's a huge asshole and just kind of comes out and talks shit and then leaves again.
Winslow.
Yeah. He's also one of these guys that all the guys love him and all the girls hate him, especially your girlfriend.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Because he met Mom, right, at some point.
Yeah. I think he stayed with us when he came down. Yeah.
I met him when I was looking at colleges, but by that point he had married, had kids, and his kids had moved away, and he let Mom and I stay in his house. And he was a little dude, gray hair, flat top, glasses.
For anyone wondering, this is Winslow from Cat Dog.
No, I mean when I was in college or looking at colleges.
Atlas.
What? Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of.
There you go.
That's who I imagine Field Mouse to be.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
it works. So we started hanging out together. I think Greg and the mouse lived together. And right after I met them, they're always looking for a scam or a new job, and the goal was to get passes to the ski mountains in Aspen.
Okay.
And by the time I got there, they wouldn't just sell you a pass. You had to have a connection, like a company or somebody had a contract with the ski corps. There are 4 big mountains at Aspen. There's the main Aspen, Ajax, we call it. There's Aspen Highlands, which is a little bit smaller hill, which you could get a separate pass for. I had one of those.
Okay.
Then there was, I forgot the third one. And the 4th one was Snowmass.
Do the passes keep from year to year, or every year you get a pass? Okay. Okay.
So the only way to get at the ski court owned 3 out of the 4 mountains, and the one everybody wanted was Ajax, and then secondarily maybe Snowmass.
Okay.
Highlands was a good mountain, but it was just kind of a standalone mountain.
Okay.
So I had a pass there, and for Ajax, they got the idea to buy out this company that gave sleigh rides around Aspen. It wasn't very successful, but it came with a whole video setup, so you can make videos of the people.
Okay.
And I think it came with a big sled and another carriage. So they arranged to buy some horses from Telluride, Colorado, which is further south. Right. Nowadays, Telluride's a big tourist place, but in those days, it was like the Wild West. You know, it had one paved road, the main road into town. You didn't have an airport. They now have an airport in Telluride, which is the scariest airport in the country to fly into. It's a disaster. And there's the nearest airport's about 80 miles away. And so they went down there. So I went down with them to pick up these horses. We were bringing back 2 big Perchuans, which are like those Budweiser horses. It's not the exact same breed, but they're
Budweiser huge horses.
Yeah, Clydesdale. Those are big horses.
Okay,
yeah. Those are horses that one shot and you're dead. Like those are big horses.
Yeah, they're big, sweet horses.
It's the horse version of Dino. That's
that is accurate.
So these were Perchuans, which are about the same size.
Okay,
and they were black, and they were named Belle and Babe.
Okay,
and we put them into these horse movers, and we pulled them back up to Aspen. And we also got another horse called Redbird, who was the craziest fucking horse you ever seen. He was so skitsy, and he eventually took off with a carriage and spilled over and ran through the streets of Aspen.
Oh my god!
Dragging his carriage.
This is all in his goddamn 20s, people.
Yeah, this is all
back then. People lived. It's different. Right?
Yeah. Nowadays you can't. The workers in Aspen can't even live in Aspen.
That's true.
No.
Yeah.
But in those days, I lived at a thing called Silver King, which was right down the street from the main village.
Yeah.
And next to all the famous places. And there was a place called the Red Onion, which after a day of work, at about 2 in the morning, all the other places closed, but the Red Onion would stay open from 2 to 3. And all the locals went there. The tourists never were onto it. So we all meet there, and they had magicians that would walk through and do card tricks, and everybody was drinking. And so what I would do is I talked Big Al into opening the store late so he could ski in the morning. You see, and I appealed to his love of skiing.
Okay.
So I'd get up and be out on the slopes when they opened at 8. And I didn't want to work as a lift person. I wasn't good enough to be a patrolman. It's too grueling anyway. And so we'd hit the slopes and we'd ski till 12. We'd open the store.
Yes.
We'd work in the store from 12 to 6. And then he hated going to house calls. Now, I was young and 20. And the house calls would go out to all the nicest houses in Aspen. And when you walk in, like I remember one house I walked in, there were 8 TV sets in the house.
Which was insane back then.
Yeah. There was a giant indoor swimming pool with these bathing beauties and bikinis lying around it. And I would basically walk and chatting them all up. I wasn't shy at all. So I would say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? I'm Roger. What's up? By then, I also had a second job. Gail Fox, Greg's sister,
Yeah.
was just knew everybody in town. And she was dating drug dealers and all sorts of stuff.
It's weird how benign this all sounds.
Yeah.
Like
it was benign.
But yeah, you're like dating drug dealers like you do. You know?
Yeah.
Well, it's the cheapest way to get drugs. It's the perfect scam.
Yeah, it wasn't the big, the inner city drug dealers. It was like cowboys.
Yeah, it's like where they're like growing weed in fucking where they shot Brokeback Mountain and then taking it up into the mountains or something.
And I didn't. I probably shouldn't tell you some stories.
You're retired. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm in my 30s
now. True. But anyway, so these drug dealers would send Gail to Hawaii with
oh my god,
a little pink skirt on and a big suitcase, and they'd fill up with Kona gold, and then she'd fly back. She'd go back and forth.
Also, I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations would have passed by now.
She might get mad if she hears this.
Oh, whatever.
What the hell? Sorry, Gail. And so fortunately, she never got caught, which is good.
Fortunately.
Yeah. Although I think one of her boyfriends did.
Yeah, it's a risky business for him. As long as Gail's safe, that's what matters. Let's be honest.
So I would meet all these women, and then so Gail was working as a waitress in one of the local rock clubs in town, and under the Hotel Jerome, which was the famous hotel then. Now the basement's called the Rockin' Horse, and she said, "Hey Roger, they need another DJ, a second DJ. Why don't you apply for it?" Because I knew I did music. I played in bands since I was a little kid,
and you knew just enough about tech to like.
Yeah, I was fixing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I applied for the job, and they gave it to me. So I would go from the house calls, chatting up all of the babes. And meanwhile, also, Big Al gave me a car, which was a old Chevy station wagon with a stick shift on the column instead of being on the floor, and with clutch and everything. And
that is a pain in the ass to drive.
Yeah, it was, and it was filled with vacuum tubes in the back.
Why vacuum tubes?
Because in the old TV sets, they didn't have all transistors. They had vacuum tubes because you get more power. And the old guitar amplifiers had them too. Oh no,
I remember the tube amps, like using them in obvious plagiarism and stuff. But like, they were just in the back. Were they supposed to go anywhere?
It was a repair. It was for repairs. So
it's like spare ones.
Okay. My supplies were all in the back.
Got it.
So it's filled with that. And I remember that particular house. About 8 or 7 out of the 9 TV sets were broken, and 6 of them were broken because they weren't plugged in to the wall. So I would go look at it and go, oh man, I'd plug it in and I'd clean all the tubes off, clean the back up, and then turn them on.
Yeah.
And then you get paid for each TV.
Right.
So I'd chat up the babes, and then when I would go over to the Rockin' Horse, I was in this booth with a hole in it to get air in. You sealed to get in, you had to crawl underneath.
And it's like the entrance to Narnia.
Right. and these girls would come in, the ones I had just met, and they'd see me, and they'd come, hey, Roger, would come in. And they'd crawl in with me, and they'd bring in opium, cocaine, just all these drugs, everything. And the opium would kill you. You take one.
Yeah.
Hit.
Hey, brought China to its knees in the 19th century.
You take one hit, and the smoke would be pouring out that hole into the club, and I'd be like, oh.
I love the idea of somebody like they're dancing or whatever, and they see smoke coming out the top. They're like, there might be a fire in there. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Not my problem. I'm over here, and they're over there.
Yeah, it's the 70s. It's not my problem.
I'd be like dozing off. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I'm trying to do the 2 turntables and I'm scratching it. It was horrible, DJ. I'd bring my own records in. You know what? In those days, I would make hits out of obscure records. Like one was "Sneaking Sally Through the Alley" by I forgot his name.
I think that's where Mom got her nickname from. because like when she was a kid, they would call her Sally, and then because of that song, supposedly.
Maybe. Well, this was he later had a bunch of hits where he had these bored-looking models behind him. It was going down. Shit, I can't remember his name.
Robin Thicke? No.
He died a few years ago.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, he had a lot of hits. But anyway, so the song that got everybody up when I would have trouble was Magic Carpet Ride by Steppenwolf. I don't know why. But as soon as they go into the lead, if you kept it playing, everybody would sit down again.
Oh.
So I'd have to go to another record. I could spin it off.
Yeah.
Again. So it was like old rock. They didn't have rap yet. And
yeah, because like hip hop and stuff don't start really being a thing until like the late 70s, early 80s, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, the first rap song was Blondie. It was Rapture by Blondie.
What's going on here?
What's going on here? We're learning that
you show this man some respect. All right. This is my dad, Cole. And you could have met him if you came to the wedding.
Yeah. But you're a loser.
All right. So Big Al working as a TV repairman, working as a terrible DJ, scamming to get the ski passes and stuff. What kind of scams?
Broads. Let's be honest. Meeting broads and then beating them up at the club. Let's be honest. That was a banging life. Like, and then you're like, in the morning I got to go skiing every day, which is heinous. I love it. This is fantastic.
What made you want to leave eventually?
Well, there were a lot of really smart people there, and there were a lot of really dumb people there.
Fabio. Yeah.
Phil. A few years later, I was back. By then, it was med school, I think. And I ran to Phil, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm in medical school." He goes, "What does that mean?" I said,
"Okay, here's a book called House of God."
Yeah. I don't think he read. So, where was I?
Why you wanted to leave? You came back a few years later.
So, after a while, there's only so much you can talk about. And you start getting bored there. I was starting to go crazy. And Greg and I started going when the Aspen would close. We were so into skiing that we would go to other places that were still open. So we would usually go over to Salt Lake City.
Okay.
It was open later because they had a good canyon.
Okay.
Little Cottonwood Canyon has some of the top snow in the world on that mountain. So we'd ski there until it was closed. And then we would hitch over to what's the lake?
Not Como?
Not Salt Lake Lake. What?
Lake Como?
No, the big lake in California. Northern California.
In Northern California.
The famous one.
I'm from here. Why am I not getting this?
Truckee, next to Truckee. Truckee's at the northern end of this lake.
Truckee?
Truckee, the town of Truckee.
Oh, the town of Truckee.
Northern. Oh my God. In the southern part is in Utah, so in Nevada, so there's gambling.
Oh
my God.
Lake Tahoe?
Lake Tahoe. Jesus Christ.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I'm so dumb. Okay.
Well, me too.
Yeah.
Even Jim jumped in here. He's like, Tahoe, it's Tahoe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Greg had some friends, some dealers, female dealers who had a house in Zephyr Cove, which is
cool name.
The southern part of the lake, right in Nevada. So he arranged for us to kind of move in with them when we got down there, which we did. And they'd be up all night. They'd be out dealing all night and come in. And
how old are you at this point?
2 years later, or actually 1 year later.
So this all happened in the space of a year?
No, or 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, we did it.
Wild.
A couple of years.
This is nuts that this is 2 years of your life.
Yeah.
I was imagining like 5, something like that. No.
You know what? It's the burden that people have now of being forced to actually like have a job where you have to go and you can't leave versus Before you're like, I worked so I could have money to live. I didn't live so I could work. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just wanted to play and ski and learn to ski. And you know, I started doing jumping eventually. I would do
ski jumping.
Yeah,
cool.
Jump little stuff.
Not highways. I
no. They have what's the term? There's a ski jumping without being on the big hills. Has a word for it.
Moguls? No.
Slalom?
No, it's a German word. Glendelfuss, or I can't.
I don't know. That
one. I remember Galunde.
Galunde. Okay.
Yeah, so
that one I'm okay
people
with.
Would do that. I wouldn't do that. That was too scary for me.
Okay.
But I could do. Eventually, I could do like a daffy, where you put one ski forward and get a pretty good air.
Yeah.
Or I could do a. I could spin around the air and land.
That's cool.
I couldn't do it in vertical. Inverting. And but the first trick I tried, I went through a book to see is there was an easy trick I could try, and it was called the worm turn. I love the worm turn because you're skiing on your skis and you lie down on your back while your skis are still flat.
And your back is above the ground, like you're not scraping on the ground.
You're like your knees are bent.
Yeah, and then you're just all the way back lying on the skis, right?
Right. Oh, then you turn, you roll over, or so your skis go all the way over and come back down again. Whoa. And then the momentum of the motion pops you back up.
Huh.
So you do it all one smooth thing. And I tried that a bunch of times. I finally got it down.
This is so cool.
Yeah, so that was the worm turn. So I'm famous for doing the worm turn. Nobody else did it.
See, the only like crazy, being in my 20s story I have is that I told you about the fog machine, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think I've told it on this show before, where I had a roommate who, during COVID, decided he wanted to build a fog machine in our apartment, and I was like, "The fuck you are!" And then he said, "Well, but it's Halloween." I'm like, "Okay, I get it, but nobody's coming over. There's no reason to have a fog machine. And also, I don't want to, no, don't do it." So a few days into November, I come home and just the apartment is full of smoke. So it just looked like Jack the Ripper meets friends. Hello. Okay.
Don't worry about it.
I saw the fog machine.
Yeah, but you have an actual fog machine, and that was made out of styrofoam and weird air ducts or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, that definitely was not good for anyone's health. That's
yeah.
That's
and I don't know, like living in college and stuff, I just sort of, it just wasn't as crazy or as stupid as yours.
Yeah, my college was crazy.
Yeah. Like there's a certain point where it's definitely like the time that you live in dictates that. But like even I have stories about college parties where like they had just made a new student union building, so it had a massive bar in it, which was great.
Oh, that's
and we would go in, though they would have parties like every single night, and I'm like, I would stay there, read my books, and then the party would kick off, and I'm like, I drop my stuff in my car and then just party the night away. But me being the size of a
school bus,
basically
one of those sleds.
I would buy like a pitcher of beer and drink it like it was a Stein instead. And then they would get mad. They're like, "You're not allowed to do that." I'm like, "Stop me." And then their bouncer looks over me and looks up at me, and he's like, "I'm not touching him." I'm like, "There we go. Just wash the thing." I'm like, "I'll use the same one and then just wash it at the end of the night. Don't be a loser." And then it was just shenanigans. So
yeah. When I was a freshman in college, they put me in a dorm, and everybody in my area were football players. And I was a good athlete. I was eventually got on the tennis team, but I was a skinny little guy. Yeah. But I somehow hit it off with all these huge guys. They were like 6'7" and 250 or 60.
Yeah.
So they did really well. So I became good friends with them. And they all joined this fraternity, Sigma Chi, and they harassed me until I joined them. So I eventually did, and we had a million crazy stories with that, too. These guys were nuts.
You guys want a part 2? Leave a like and comment below. I'll bring them back. It'll be awesome.
God knows I do. See, that's the difference, though, is your youth should be about experiencing things as opposed to getting anything else, right? Like people are too focused on, you're like, well, I want to follow my goals and stuff. You're like, hey, take a few years, enjoy life, just get to know people. Like all that you learn
with dumb stuff, you know,
not even dumb stuff, just doing things for the sake of just enjoyment. Be like, I've always wanted to try. Like the idea now of somebody saying, I want to ski, I'm going to hitchhike all the way to Colorado and see what happens. If you said that to somebody now, they would be like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like you have lost your gourd. When you're going, that wasn't that crazy. Like it was not the norm, but it wasn't a wild idea. It was like, I want to go do it. So you go do it.
And this is like all happening around like the gas crisis and all that stuff,
there was
right?
a big crisis in '73 where it had long lines
and Watergate and all this stuff.
And I was pretty politically active. So I went to Columbia where they had major riots in '68, the year before I got there. And they even had them in my first year, freshman. We were occupying buildings. And even on my transcript now, it says, due to unusual circumstances in the spring of whatever year it was.
60.
I think it was 1970.
Okay.
The faculty had voted to give pass-fail grades, which really helped me because I think I would have failed physics. I've gotten some bad grades in there. And
they're like, hey, I went, learn too much from Kent State and figured your shit out.
It was at that same time. As Kent State.
Makes sense.
There are a lot of books written about all those riots, like Up Against the Ivy Wall and other stuff. And the SDS, Students for a Democratic Society, were active and so on.
Dang, all I have is the George Floyd protest in 2020. That's the only like sort of stuff I was around for.
Well, the other interesting thing is, the restaurant where at Seinfeld, now we're talking about Seinfeld, is, where it says coffee shop. That was a place called Duke's Coffee Shop that I ate in all the time. It was at Columbia. They just changed the sign on the outside.
Oh, for the exterior shop.
Yeah, right? Exterior shop. So that was our coffee shop.
Hey, Serge, you missed out, buddy.
Yeah, see, small but devoted following.
So it was good. And what were we talking about at lunch today?
With Phoebe?
Yeah. I went to lunch today with my
my sister.
Kids. Yeah. And we were talking about this is what I had in mind.
Yeah.
I was telling him that what I think the real purpose of college is not to necessarily learn academic stuff, although that's important as well, but it's to learn how to be a person and how to live alone, be an adult. See, I think that's the key.
I don't question that at all. Like what I was told when I was younger was, if you want to get a job, go to college. If you want to expand your mind and learn about life and everything, go to university, because that's not about employment. That's about learning more and really being able to experiment with knowledge, right? Because the fact is that up until you're done high school, you're not told how to think, you're told what to think. Whereas in university, it's kind of like, well, what do you think? And you're like, I don't want to think, I'm just here to learn. And you're like, no, you're here to actually participate and expand and actually learn how to critical think. Whereas, sadly now that's not necessarily the case. People are instead indoctrinated with whatever. But
I think social media has screwed up a lot of things. I mean, there's some advantages of it as well, but it's changed how you approach life, I think.
And like even friendships too. Like most of the friendships you get in high school dissolve when you leave high school, for better or for worse. And then the friendships you make in college, after meeting a cab driver at the airport or whatever, it's supposed to be stuff that just happens by living life. But because of how insulated social media and COVID and the way our cities are designed, it makes it so just making friends is a problem for me and for like my generation and for Gen Zers, because it's not practiced outside of school.
Yeah. That's hilarious, Jim. But that's, see, realistically, like for me, I have a couple friends that I've known, like that I've known since grade 6 that I'm still in contact with. The only problem is now is because, like, so in my house, Roger, I have my I live with my in-laws, and they are both elderly, so we help take care of them. So I'm like, when the pandemic hit, I'm like, I can't leave the house. We're kind of stuck here, and we stayed. But like, I haven't seen those friends now for, you know, almost 4 years, but we're like dying to get back together because it's been so long. But normally we do stuff all the time. Like, and that's like, those are friends that I've had. Yeah. One is from grade 6. The other one's from grade 9. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I still hang out with them, but like, just not right now. But
yeah. So what sort of crazy stories do you have from your 20s? Leave it in the comments below. Tell me what you think about my dad being on the show, because this was absolutely fantastic.
And if Gail sees this, feel free to come on and defend yourself. By all means, we're happy to have you.
I love to talk about stuff.
So, it's always fun. You don't really do social media much, do you? Or
not very often.
Yeah. So
if you want to hear more stories, just follow Atlas. That's how that's how you do it. You follow Atlas, follow the show, and that's how it works.
In all the places. Or my other podcast, Nexus at Night, which is about a trading card game. That's not your bag, I understand. And then my other podcast, Last Minute History, with previous host of this show called Clayton.
Yeah.
That's every other Monday. So the time you're hearing this, the Monday coming up is the next episode. So that's on the Generation Dan RSS feed. So if you subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice, you'll also get Last Minute History. How about you,
almost as if it just makes life easier if you just subscribe to everything. I'm Dino the Genetic Marvel because I've lost 250 pounds and still have no big titties. It's a wild experience. I trust the science, but you know, what can I say? I might be a wizard of some sort. So please feel free to follow us. I'm doing a carnivore diet, which is very interesting. So far, it's been a unique experience, but it's definitely, follow me on social media. People are enjoying it, so you know, see what happens. In the meantime,
and at Generation Dan.
Clearly. Okay. Come on.
All right, just making sure.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
If you want to hear more about the mouse, bring me back.
Absolutely.
We didn't even talk about it.
Yeah, all that much, but
100%.
But thank you for allowing me to be on.
No, thank you for sharing stories with us and reminding us of what life was meant to be like. That's for sure. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.